This week in the field, recapping some shooting themes from my last San Diego Coastlines workshop. Hey everybody, I'm Scott Davenport and welcome to In the Field. Today I'm going to talk about some of the shooting themes that surfaced from my last San Diego Coastlines workshop. If you'd like to join me on a workshop, bad news is 2017 workshops have sold out. It's a good problem to have, but it means I can't bring any more photographers with me to some of my favorite spots on Earth. But the 2018 workshop dates will be announced later this year, so if you want to be one of the first to know when those workshops are coming, best thing to do is subscribe to my mailing list. Head on over to my site, links in the show notes, and the workshops are announced to my mailing list first before anywhere else. So that way you get the first crack at getting on the reserve list and getting signed up. So I had a great group of photographers in San Diego a couple of weeks ago. And as we were doing our shoots and so forth, there were a few shooting themes that kind of seemed to surface. As I look back a couple of weeks ago and revisit some of the things in my mind, there were certainly some themes. And so I thought I'd talk about those today. Now, the first theme was to move around. So that's something, it's a piece of advice I always give for landscape photographers, especially when you're visiting someplace new. You walk up somewhere new, everything looks interesting, and you sometimes will grow roots, right? You'll plant your tripod down somewhere, and just moving your head back and forth or pivoting the camera is one thing, but you really got to get your boots moving, get your feet moving around up and down, in our case, the beach, whether it's a hiking trail, whatever it might be, because you will find different perspectives on the scene. And I think that goes true for if you're visiting a place you're familiar with, using the half and half rule. And I think I've talked about that on a previous episode. If I haven't, someone keep me honest and I'll bring that up again. But going out for your envision shot, but then after you've got that, look for something else, walk around, move around. And the gang we had in the workshop did a great job of that. And the photos, there were so many different varieties. And that's one of the things I love about workshops in places I know is I get to see them all freshly through a different set of eyes. And I already want to get back out to some of these places and now, kind of leverage someone else's view of the scene to get something different that I don't have in my library. But yeah, theme number one was moving around, not planting your tripod and then staying in that one spot for the entire shoot. That doesn't mean you don't work a composition and work a scene, but you don't work it for the entirety of your outing. The second theme was minimizing the sky in the frame. So we don't always get brilliant sunrises and sunsets. San Diego's no exception, as beautiful as it is. Had a great sky on one of our sunsets. Other ones were pretty barren, pretty empty. And so a technique to still get a very good photo is just to minimize the amount of sky that's in the frame. Find something more interesting in the foreground. And with the ocean, we've always got these swirls of water moving around things. It makes every single shot unique. And that's what we did. We focused on foregrounds and getting swirls of water or finding interesting people, subjects, silhouettes, things that would make the entire scene more interesting. One of the guys was really good at finding plants and working those into the scene, and that's stuff that I overlook all the time. So, as I said just a minute ago, I'm really eager to get back out there and try some different compositions that incorporate the land as well as the ocean into the shoots. So, the sky's not working, minimize it. Don't have it as part of your frame, and find the more interesting things in the foreground and still come away with a really good photo. Now, a final theme was this high contrast period of time, maybe 20 minutes before sunset. So it's somewhat coupled with the having a relatively empty sky or something uninteresting. But even on days where there's some light, partly cloudy days, like that, those types of skies I live for, you still get some very harsh light 20 minutes or so before sunset. Yes, the sun's getting closer to the horizon, but if you're trying to incorporate the sun into the frame, things get very, very harsh. And I want to show you an example of that here. So this photo, the sun is still pretty well above the horizon. The clouds are kind of blocking it, but look at the foreground. It's completely washed out. There's not a lot of color there. The silhouette of rocks are cool, But because that sun is so high still, in comparison to the horizon, it's so high in the sky, and you're shooting directly into it, everything was very high contrast. And you've got a couple of choices. One is you wait, and you get, once the sun goes down, I've changed my perspective here, my horizontal versus vertical. But now there are those hints of blues and purples and little bits of orange in the foreground. I'm starting to see some of the detail in that rock again, just because the lighting situation isn't so harsh. The other thing we can do is not have the sun in the shot. Get it so it's on one of your shoulders, whatever shoulder it makes sense for you and wherever you're pointing to find something else interesting. And here's an example of that. So this was taken about the same time as this photo, maybe 15 minutes or so apart. But you notice the richness of color here. And I've done a bit of processing on this. The other two were just straight out of the camera. But there's not that harshness, and you're having plenty of tonal range there to get all of the interesting details that are going on. And it's finding a different subject, and the sun is, in this case, off to camera right. So for tip of the week, I think the most universal is to move around. Don't just walk up, plant, and start to get a shot, and then not do something else. Explore the scene, work the space. That's why I always like to arrive early and have enough time to walk up and down a stretch of area wherever I be working to find different compositions. Think about them and what they might look like as your golden hour is approaching or sunrise is coming up. Sunrise a little trickier because you may not be able to see very well where you're working, but explore the scene and don't grow those roots in our feet. And that's going to do it for this week in the field. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, let me know somehow. Reach out. Always like getting your photography questions. I want this to continue to be a two-way conversation. Send them on in or through my website, comments below on the video. However you'd like to ask your questions, by all means, please do. And until next time, my name's Scott Davenport. Happy shooting. Accomplish doesn't make any sense. I don't even drink and I sound like I'm drunk. Reach out, got photography. I can't speak anymore.